Welcome to the Narcissist Slayers podcast with your hosts, Hope Jay
and Lynn Catalano.
Every episode, we focus on recovery from narcissistic abuse. We talk about topics that we believe will help people to identify signs of abuse, learn strategies to cope, and most importantly, how to heal and move forward from narcissistic abuse. We are both survivors of narcissistic abuse ourselves, lawyers, and one of us is an author.
Well, thank you, Hope. My book, Wrecking Ball Relationships, How to Identify, Live With, or Leave the Narcissist in Your Life, is available in many places, including my website, lynncatalano.com.
Because we have been in your shoes, we know how difficult this journey can be. That is why I founded the Center for Hope of Western New York, a nonprofit organization which provides education, support, and advocacy for survivors of narcissistic abuse. You can find out more about the Center for Hope at centerforhopewny.org, and all donations are gratefully welcomed and tax exempt.
Please follow us on X and Instagram at NarcSlayersPod, and also on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube, the Narcissist Slayers Podcast. You can also email us directly with your questions at narcslayers@centerforhopewny.org.
Welcome back to the Narcissist Slayers with your hosts, Hope Jay
and Lynn Catalano.
And today we're going to be talking about the discard. But we're going to be talking about it in a way that we want to frame for our listeners as actually as positive, right?
Absolutely.
The discard is the last phase in the cycle of narcissistic abuse. It's when the narcissist has decided, for whatever reasons, that they're done with the relationship. But from our perspective today, we are thinking about the discard as an opportunity.
Yes.
As an opportunity to start over and move forward in your life. And we thought that because it's January and the beginning of the year.
Yep. New year, new you.
That's right.
Yep.
That we can think about, what it's like kind of to start over when you have been discarded by a narcissist, and some of the do's and don'ts for starting that journey. So we've come up with a list of the top 10 do's and don'ts after the discard.
Yes.
So Lynn, I think you're going to do the 5 do's, and then I'm going to do the 5 don'ts.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if this has happened to you, please do the following 5 things. Please go no contact with your narcissist. Please do enlist the help and support of your family and friends, especially people that you may have been isolated from before. Please seek legal advice, please. 4, please educate yourself about narcissistic abuse. And 5, absolutely allow yourself to grieve the relationship you thought you had.
And I'm going to talk about the don'ts, okay? So the top 5 don'ts after the discard. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated by the narcissist hoovers. The fake apologies, the crocodile tears, and promises that things will change. This is the trap that many people fall into when you reconcile, after a discard. Things will not only change, but they are likely to get worse. Number 2, don't allow yourself to be sucked in and manipulated by the narcissist flying monkeys. You must set boundaries, not only with them, but with anyone who is pleading their case or taking their side. Number 3, don't get stuck in the vortex of trying to understand why they did what they did. Whatever awful things that you learned about them after the discard, trying to untangle the skein of their abusive behavior will only keep you stuck and unable to move forward. Number 4, don't narc dip. Meaning, don't keep checking their social media or accounts. Don't ask other people, how they're doing or what they're doing. Do set firm boundaries with yourself and other people that you don't want to know what they're doing, as this behavior, again, only keeps you stuck. And number 5, don't fall down the rabbit hole of misremembering the abuse and glorifying the relationship. This will only make you vulnerable to a hoover. Choose a friend or family member to keep you honest, and make sure that you hold yourself accountable if you feel weak or feel like contacting the narcissist. So those are, the top 5 do's and don'ts after the discard. And we're going to spend some time kind of, really digging in a little bit to those things. Yes. And sharing maybe, some stories or, some anecdotes and some ways, some coping strategies of how to work through that. but we wanted to give you that list up front.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay.
I feel this deeply, Hope, because I went into this new year really taking stock, as one does after a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I needed to leave some things behind. I needed to move on from some very specific things.
Okay.
And I know you have as well. For me, it was really moving past the horrible, cruel things that my narcissist had said and done. And I think it's really easy to ruminate about those things. I think it's really easy to read them over and over again.
Yep.
And go back into, I think it was your number 3, where
Getting stuck in the vortex. So, yeah. I think that happens to a lot of people.
I mean, you and I talked about this. The
Yeah.
example that we consistently give is when you've been bitten by a snake. Why do we spend time chasing the snake,
Yeah.
asking the snake, why did you bite me, instead of helping ourselves heal?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I think, that's sort of the reason why I wanted to sort of, punch those out, because, I mean, these are things that pretty much everyone does. Okay. It's a rare person who, gets discarded by a narcissist or has their relationship end in a way that is generally incredibly devastating, right? Because when you're discarded, you're finding out things about the relationship that you simply were not aware of. It's like, what ends up happening is usually you're uncovering things about that person that they had lied to you about, that they kept covered up for years and years. So, not only are you usually on the receiving end of a very unceremonious discard, a person that you've invested all this time and energy in, and suddenly they're telling you that the relationship is over. You probably have a lot of sunk costs, a lot of time invested. If you're married, the financial ruin. If you have children, you're struggling, trying to figure out how you're going to co-parent with somebody like this.
Yeah.
But what they tend to do is, get up, shake themselves off, and walk out the door off into what you perceive to be the sunset with their new supply.
Yes.
And this is something that I think it takes people a long time to wrap their brains around, because you've invested, you have bonded with somebody, you have loved. And we don't have the frame of reference. We don't have the context to understand somebody who could be in a relationship for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, however long of a period it is.
My life.
Your lifetime.
Yes.
And then just turn around.
Turn it off.
And walk out that door like none of that ever happened and none of that ever existed. So it's incredibly
painful.
Devastating and painful for the people who are left behind.
Yes.
When the discard does happen.
Yes.
So getting stuck in the don't section of this is very common, because what you're so confused and you're so hurt and you're in so much pain that you want to understand what happened to you.
Yeah.
But I think what we're trying to say here today is falling down that rabbit hole is not going to be healthy for you. It's just not. There's things that we're suggesting that people do about educating yourself about narcissistic abuse. And that, I think, is important.
I do too.
I think it's important because, you don't know what hit you, and you're looking around for answers, and, you fall into a place where there might be information about narcissistic abuse, or a support group where there's other survivors and people talking about this kind of behavior. And suddenly you're like, okay, now I have some framework for this. Now I have some language for this. Now there are other people who have been through something like this, and it makes you feel less alone. But there's a danger in being investing so much time and energy into trying to, like I said earlier, untangle the skein or understand, the narcissist, to try to understand, this personality disorder, because there's really only one thing you need to understand, truthfully, okay? They didn't bond, okay? They have no remorse. They don't feel guilt.
Wow.
And they don't have empathy for how you feel.
Well, all true.
All of those things combined means you're going to waste all of this time trying to figure this out, when they are, you are no longer relevant in their life.
Okay, so I think what you're saying here is that it's important to educate yourself
Yes.
about narcissistic abuse
Yes.
and about narcissistic personality disorder. And I got to tell you, so many people come to me through my videos, through right here, our podcast on Spotify and YouTube, because they see us and they identify with us, because what this abuse is incredibly relatable. We have all experienced some kind of toxicity, not probably to the level, I hope at least, that Hope and I have experienced. But what happens is the behavior of someone who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder is incredibly consistent. They are going to exhibit the same behaviors, whether it's your father or your mother or your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever, or your boss or your coworker. They're going to exhibit those same behaviors. So I think that finding out about it is so important. And I do encourage everyone that I speak to really read.
I think that there's a balance on that. So, I mean, people tend to have an impulse to want to educate themselves. I was definitely one of those people. I'm sitting here with a pile of books that, that was my way of coping.
Sure.
Was to start reading and reading well into the night and, doing all my research. But ultimately, that isn't what freed me from the relationship. What freed me from the relationship was recognizing that I never had any power to control or change this person, and that the only person that I had power and control to change was me. Okay.
Yep.
And honestly, of all the books that I read, and I've got a bunch here, Psychopath Free, Prepare to Be Tortured. These are very good books, by the way. Dr. Seth's Love Prescription, which is about relationship repetition syndrome, which I do highly recommend. But the most important book that I ever read, that I think every single person who's coming out of a relationship like this should read, is Codependent No More, because this is the book that helps you to focus on you. Okay, it helps you to look at yourself, your patterns, how did you find that relationship acceptable? How did you stay in a relationship with somebody again, this is not victim blaming. This is the work that we all have to do as survivors of narcissistic abuse for two reasons. One, we have to shore up our boundaries and learn what's acceptable and what's not acceptable behavior. So when we do get back out into the dating pool and we do, at some point decide maybe we'd like to try for another relationship, that we're not inviting that type of person into our life again.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a big reason. But also because you have to heal yourself. You have to put the work into you, so that you are, whole and healed and able to move forward in your life. Spending too much time on this is it's kind of a distraction from doing the inner work. And
I recommend a combination.
Yeah.
So, and I know in the do's that I went through very quickly, it's not only about educating yourself, it's about surrounding yourself with that support network.
Well, yes.
I referred, when I wrote my book, Wrecking Ball Relationships, I talked about my book. Thank you. I talked about my support system, and specifically my beacon of light. And we talk about that a lot at the Center for Hope, because we use a lighthouse as our symbol.
Yep.
Because that's a beacon of light and a beacon of hope. And for me, my husband was definitely that.
Yeah.
When I went through it, and you need someone who's going to listen to you.
Oh, absolutely.
And love you unconditionally,
That's a little bit different than putting your head into a book. I mean, that's number 2 on the do list.
Right.
Do enlist the help and support of family members, friends, and other professional therapists or a coach, like Lynn is a coach, to help you through the early days when you may have difficulty holding your boundaries with a narcissist. You may have been socially isolated from your support system by the narc. So this is a really good time, for those of you who are, starting over, you want to reconnect with those people.
Yes, important.
Yeah, and if they, these people were your support system, and because your, abuser alienated you probably from these people, they're going to be so happy.
Yes.
When you call them and say, what, I'm done with this person and I really want you back in
Call
my life.
them.
Call them.
Call them.
They will be there for you.
Definitely.
You know, they're probably really confused as to why you hadn't spoken to them. So this is an opportunity to bring them back into your life.
Yes. I want to give you one other thing that I let go of after the discard.
Yeah.
And this is important. The weight of other people's opinions. If you have gone through the discard, more than likely you're also experiencing the smear campaign, where the narcissist spins the relationship to make them look in a better light, so that they are portrayed as the victim. Perhaps they portray you as the villain, and it depends what your level of caring about this is. I hope it's minimal, because for me, it's been a constant battle. I have read, Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. I have tried very hard to not take things personally, because I think it is incredibly important in your healing process to just sit back and say, who cares? That's not the story. That's not what happened. I don't need to go out there and issue a correction. I don't need to go out there and, have my own campaign. I need to do what's right for me and surround myself with those wonderful people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's really important, because it is easy to kind of fall down a rabbit hole, particularly if you are seeing it reflected back at you by the flying monkeys.
Yes.
The people who are, aligning with your narc.
Yes.
That was number 2. Number 2. Yes.
Right?
Number 2 on the don't list is people who are aligning with the narcissist, who are pleading his or her case, who are trying to get you to reconcile or to listen to them. Those people are not your friends.
Right.
Okay. Those people are toxic and need to be cut off the same as the narcissist. And, I've seen some people who talk about this, who go so far as to say, even people who are Switzerland, even people who are saying, I can't take
There's
sides.
good people on both sides.
I
have people like that in my family.
Yes. And those are really tough people, because, they may have been friends with you both as a couple, or they may have known your family for years, or, who knows. But if they're undermining your perspective, and they are, in any way supporting the narcissist, those are not healthy people for you to have in your life.
Nope. I agree. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, and that's part of the healing process.
Right.
Yeah.
But as you move forward from the discard, it's super, super important. Again, we kind of really blew through these, but it's super, super important to go no contact. And no contact is literally the single most important thing that you can do to protect yourself from the vast majority of a lot of these other things. Because, when you let them in a tiny little bit, narcissists, they don't know boundaries. They don't respect boundaries. They don't care about how you feel. They have no empathy for how you feel. So they're going to just, plunder their way in. They're going to push their way in. They're going to, move those goalposts and whatever you give them an inch, they take a mile, or, with a narcissist case, they take 100 miles. So you have to shut them down, which means no contact. If you have children with them, modified no contact or gray rock. We've done, lots of podcasts on that. But that also means you have to block them. You have to go through and block them from your social media accounts, from your email, from your phone, because they will attempt to get to you any way that they can. If you have not set those boundaries and block them, and they try and come back. And by the way, just because they discarded you doesn't mean basically much of anything at all. It simply means that they, found something else that interested them, or, they're punishing you with a silent treatment, or they went into a rage storm, or whatever happened. Yeah. But, sooner or later, they're going to come circling back around, because it's much, much easier for them to not have to groom new supply when they already have you. And you've been primed, and you are a person who they've learned over time that they can come back into your life. Yeah. So if you are really committed to moving forward, then you have to stop the pattern. And the best way to stop the pattern is by going full no contact and setting those boundaries.
Break the cycle.
Break the cycle.
Yeah.
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 Another thing that, we kind of blew through, which is about seeking legal advice. It's super important if you are who've been discarded by a narcissist, not to wait around to see whether or not they're going to be fair or they're going to be nice or they're going to want to, I really highly do not recommend mediation with people like this. The best thing for you to do is to find a good family law attorney, particularly somebody who understands the dynamics of narcissistic abuse or domestic violence, and lawyer up. That person is going to explain to you what your rights are. They're going to explain the law to you. And most importantly, you can stand behind them and let them deal with the narcissist and the narcissist attorney, because you're going to need those resources to focus on your children, to focus on your life, to focus on your healing. You don't want to be having to constantly have to focus on the legal issues as well. Okay.
Right.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with respect to the discard and moving forward?
Well, I think it's interesting. I sort of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think it's interesting to pay attention to who is really there for you, because it is a good time to take stock of your circle. And certainly as we grow older, our circle gets smaller, and that's okay. We have better friends. We just have less friends. Maybe it's not true for other people, but I know my father was the narcissist in my life, as you know, if you've watched our stuff before. He always claimed to have lots and lots of friends. But in reality, he thought Facebook friends were his friends. Right. So those are acquaintances. I'm talking about the people that are really there for you, that you can call and go have coffee with, and that make you laugh and make you feel comfortable. Those are your friends. And so I had to take stock of all the people that hadn't contacted me or that I hadn't contacted in a long time. And I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. You want to surround yourself with people who are going to support you in this it's really a new chapter of your life. Yeah. It's a new chapter. Yeah. Once you make that decision, even if you were the one that were discarded, usually, the narcissist does the discarding and the partner is on the other end of that. But sometimes the partner's the one to discard the narcissist. Sometimes that does happen. But even if it wasn't your choice, this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to take stock of your life, to recognize that this relationship has been toxic, that it's not good for you, that it's not healthy for you, and to start laying your game plan for how you're going to move forward. And with that, Lynn and I did say that Lynn is the author. She did write the book, but I happen to have a couple of short stories published in this book by Bree Branche. She's wonderful. She's online. She wrote a compilation called I Am Free. And I highly, highly recommend this book for people who are right now in the beginning stages of the discard, trying to look forward to your life after the narcissist. There are a couple things that were published that I wrote in here, and I wanted to just read a brief excerpt from that I think is very applicable to what we're talking about today.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I said earlier that, I think sometimes the discard is an opportunity, this is what I mean by it. And I'm just reading the very last piece of this. It's much longer. Thank you for leaving. It saved my life. I'm going to get healthy now. I'm going to heal my inner wounds, the ones that led me to you, the ones that made me vulnerable to you and your manipulation. I'm going to learn my value and understand my worth and know what boundaries are and take care of me. Treat myself kindly with respect and love. I'm going to invite love and happiness and create peace and sanity in my world. I don't know that I would have ever truly understood how codependent I am, how codependency led me down the wrong road over and over again, how I confused love with abuse, how I spent years of my life loving people who could never love me in return, who could never give me what I needed or wanted or deserved, because I couldn't give me what I needed, wanted, or deserved. I knew I had something to learn from you, and as painful as this experience has been, I learned the most important lesson of my entire life. I learned that I deserve real love. I learned that I chose my own destruction. I learned that I can change this dysfunctional pattern, that I have the power, that I can choose to be happy and healthy, and that I am no longer going to stumble through my life in the dark, allowing my pain and my subconscious wounds to take the lead and make the decisions. I am awake, and for that, I will always be grateful.
Incredibly, incredibly important feelings and words. Hope. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I hope that, anybody who's listening realizes, Lynn and I, we sit here and we talk about these topics every month, and we work with survivors of narcissistic abuse every day in our careers and our professional work. But I think it's so important to remember that we also survived this type of abuse.
Yeah.
So, and exactly. I think Lynn has something she wants to read as well.
Sure. I will share with you at a similar point, I think, in the relationship I wrote this. I want you to experience the pure, wholesome, authentic feelings you felt while watching fireworks, especially on a holiday or at the happiest place on earth, when all you're thinking about are the lights, the spectacle, the sounds, and the feelings of happiness. I wish you this release, this freedom. I wish for you all the things you haven't been able to think about or consider due to the iron grip the narcissist has had on your life. Learn to love yourself and become your authentic self again. Discover who you are without the narcissist. One of the best gifts you can give yourself is to learn the benchmarks of healthy relationships. Learn how to resist your attraction to toxic people. It may take time.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yes, absolutely. We're here to really guide you on this journey. But we would love to have your questions. We'd love to answer your questions.
Absolutely. Please reach out. You can reach out. You can email us at narcslayers@centerforhopewmi.org.
Yes.
Or hit us up on the podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn,
Spotify, YouTube.
Yes. And thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next month.